So let's find 12 divided by 1/4. So we're going to need to get 12 pieces, arrange them in a fourth of a row, and see how many columns we get. So first, let's get 12 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now we need to arrange them in a fourth of a row to see how many columns we would get. The problem is that the width of one singular piece is already the width of one row, but we need a width of a fourth of a row. So let's cut up each piece into 4 smaller parts so that we can get each width to be the width of a fourth of a row. It would not change how many pieces we have, we would be simply rearranging the blue. Okay, now we cut each piece into 4 parts. We still have the same amount of blue, but we simply rearranged the blue. Now let's align them into a fourth of a row to see how many columns we will get. So now let's count up how many columns we have to figure out what 12 divided by 1/4 is. So when you have 12 squares and you arrange them into a fourth of a row to see how many columns you get 48 columns. Therefore, 12 divided by 1/4 is equal to 48. This also means when n is equal to 1/4, 12 divided by n is equal to 48. So here I have 12 blue squares. If I cut each square into 4 pieces, I'll get something like this. Now I want to explain how I get from this picture to this picture. Here that I marked in pink could be transferred over to the position that I marked by pink in the top picture. Here that I marked with purple could be transferred over to the position that I marked with purple in the top picture. Here that I circled with tan could be transferred over to the position that I marked by tan in the top picture. Here that I circled in crimson could be transferred over to the position I marked with crimson in the top picture. In the top picture, I was trying to figure out what 12 divided by 1/4 is by aligning 12 squares into a fourth of a row and seeing how many columns I'll get. The columns I have is 12 columns from the pink, 12 columns from the purple, 12 columns from the tan, and 12 columns from the crimson. So I have 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12. I have 4 12s being added together. That's 4 times 12, which is equal to 12 times 4. So 12 divided by 1/4 is equal to 12 times 4, which is 48. I would now like to explain in a different way why 12 divided by 1/4 is equal to 48. Well, 12 divided by 48 is equal to 12/48. And to simplify this fraction, I'll divide both the numerator and denominator by 12. I plan to explain why you can do this in a later set of videos, and when I create that set of videos, I plan to put a link of it in the description of this video. Anyway, 12 divided by 12 is 1, and 48 divided by 12 is 4, so this would be 1/4. Because of this equation, and because we know that division is the opposite of multiplication, this means that 48 times 1/4 is equal to 12. Because of this equation, and because of the commutative property, That property says that x times y is equal to y times x, where x is one number and y is yet another number. I explained why this is the case in a previous set of videos, and I plan to link that set of videos in the description of this video. Anyway, because of this equation and because of the commutative property of multiplication, this means that 1/4 times 48 is equal to 12. Because division is the opposite of multiplication, I can now know from that equation that 12 divided by 1/4 is equal to 48. I would now like to use algebra to explain why you divide fractions in this way no matter what similar problem you may come across. A divided by AB, where A is one number and B is yet another number. AB means A times B. Anyway, A divided by AB is equal to A over AB. I can simplify this fraction by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by A. A divided by A is 1, and AB divided by A is B, so this would be equal to 1 over B. Because of this equation and because division is the opposite of multiplication, I can now know that AB times 1 over B is equal to A. Because of the commutative property of multiplication, I can now know from this equation that 1 over B times AB is equal to A. Because of this equation and because division is the opposite of multiplication, I can now know that A divided by 1 over B is equal to AB. Here is a link for the playlist that's about dividing 12 by smaller and smaller numbers by using rows and columns. It includes this video and other similar videos. If you would like to, feel free to click on this link.